was your best? I do remember sleep by having. Hey! So today I decided to do a tag video, and I decided to do first time tag. So it's me answering a whole bunch of questions about my first time with various things, and I've seen a few different ones on YouTube, so I just picked the one where I found the questions first. Let's begin. It's my first tweet. So yesterday I kind of looked at these questions and I looked at some of them and I was like, okay, my first ever tweet. So I was going scrolling down on my Twitter to just find my first tweet, and even Twitter gave up. That's how much I tweet, and it's just like I'm not going any further. So I have no idea what my first Twitter is, or my first tweet. And I also have 2 Twitter accounts, so I tried on both and neither gonna work. So I don't know. I lost my questions. This is not good. Okay, first YouTube video. So I only been on YouTube for about 6 months, so I should remember this. And it was my 10 hair essentials. So all different 10 products that is my hair essentials, from brushes to combs and treatments and all these things. So I'll link that below as well if you want to see my first ever video, where I was a bit nervous but I did alright, I think. And first Facebook profile page. So it was, my first picture was from 2006 and I was in New York, and it was, I had black hair, I had short hair. You can't really see it too much because I got a wet hat that I also bought in New York and I thought it was so cool. So yeah, that was my first Facebook picture. Who was your first love, and do you still speak to them? I think my first love was Casper from Arvingarna, which is a band, a Swedish band, and I never spoke to him, so I definitely don't speak to him again, or anymore. The only contact I ever had with him was my sister made him write a birthday card for me when I turned 12? No, I can't be that old. Yeah, I must have turned 10 or something, and she got me to give a birthday card to me, and that's the only contact ever. And yeah, my life is very sad. What was your first alcoholic drink? It must have been me trying a beer or something. That's all I can think of. I always said like, can I try some? And like at home. And even like in Sweden, most people just drink beer, so yeah. What was your first job? So my first summer job was when I must have been 13, 14. And it was this, so I lived in like this tiny little area in a little village, and they in the summer had this outdoor pool, and they had a little shop where you sold sweets and stuff, and I worked in there for a couple of weeks just selling sweets, ice cream, and I think actually ate more ice creams than I sold. Yeah, because it was quite bad weather when I worked, so no one came, and I sat and I ate all the ice creams. What was your first car? I never had a car, I don't know how to drive, so don't know when that's gonna happen. So, who was the first person to text you today? Well, it's 11:51 at the moment, and I still haven't received a single text message, WhatsApp, or any kind of message today. So I feel kind of a bit unloved actually on this. I'm like, in my life this sad, I don't have any friends. But no, everyone's at work and busy, I guess. Normally it's someone who asks if they want their hair done, or my mum, my sister. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Who is the first person you thought of this morning? It was very likely my husband, because I was still sleeping and he was getting ready to go to work and making a bit of noise, and I kind of like waking up and I don't know what's going on. So I would definitely say my husband. All I do remember is I dreamt about a lot of food. I was constantly buying food. Who was your first grade teacher? My first teacher her name was Marit, and she was amazing. I loved her so much, and I remember when we moved and I had to move schools, I was so upset because I'm not going to have her as a teacher anymore. She was so nice, and I remember so much that she taught me, and yeah, she was just so cool. Where did you go on your first ride on an airplane? So my first ever time I was on a plane was when I moved to London. At that moment I didn't know I was moving to London. I knew I was going to London and I didn't really have any other plan. I knew if I liked it I'd probably stay for the summer. The fact that I'm still here 11 years later was not part of the plan, but I was all by myself and it was my first train journey or plane journey, and it was a pretty good one, isn't it? Who was your first best friend and do you still talk? My first best friend, as I remember, was Anna Beng, and we do not still talk because we moved areas quite a lot. So when I was younger we kind of moved every 2 years, so I lost contact with a lot of my friends when I was younger. I don't know if we're still in the same area, if we still would talk, I don't know, things happens. But yeah, she was pretty amazing, we had great fun. She was also, my mum was kind of like a carer for lots of kids, so they all came to her house every day and she was one of them, and we had so much fun. Where was your first sleepover? So my first sleepover probably was at Anna. I remember when we moved from there, I went to see her and stay there. I don't really remember. Well, I remember I didn't like sleepovers when I was little. I find it really annoying. Like, I just wanted to be at home and sleep. Like, you wake up earlier than the other person and you're like kind of crammed in the corner of their bed, and it's like you just lie there waiting for them to wake up, and kind of, I was a bit shy and awkward when I was little, so I was just like lying there like waiting for them to wake up, and it's just like all I wanted to be was be at home. So yeah, I wasn't really a fan of sleepovers, to be honest. I haven't had that many, but yeah. What was the first thing I did this morning? Well, every morning when I wake up, I'm dying to have a wee, so I just stumble downstairs to go to the toilet, and I find it so annoying that my bedroom is upstairs and my bathroom is downstairs, because the amount of time I'm about to break my legs or something because I'm like half awake. But yeah, that's what I do first thing every morning. What was the first concert you ever went to? I think it was I was a huge Backstreet Boys fan from when I was about 12, and I think my dream was always to go and see them live, and I was every time they came to Sweden I was like crying my eyes out because I so badly wanted to go, and I never got to go, and I was just so upset. And then finally, my kind of last year of liking them, I must have been like 14, 15, I finally got to see them and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. My first broken bone. So I never really broken any bones. I never broken an arm or leg or anything like that. The only time I kind of broken something was in Geneva, and I broke one of my little toes because I had a bit too much wine, and on walking barefoot on wet grass, it's just not a good mixture. My first ever piercing. The first time I was going to pierce my ears, I was about 18, and my friend was going to do it for me. So the first time we had a couple of drinks because it was like, it's going to be too painful, and we just had a needle and put in my ears, which kind of didn't really work. Like, they kind of came nothing. So then I asked my other friend who actually had like proper like piercing needles, and I remember like we had kind of this band and we were like rehearsing, and then after we were like, it's gonna pierce my ears, and all I remember her saying, like, she just looked at me and like pierced my ears, and she was like, oh, and I was like, what's wrong, and she's like, nothing, and I was like, what is wrong? And apparently like I was just bleeding, like it was so much blood coming from my ears. So yeah, not very good. And then it kind of kept regrowing back again, so I had to keep asking people to like pierce my ears, and eventually I just went and did it professionally somewhere. First foreign country I went to, so my first ever country probably was about when I was 1 and went to Finland. First probably like I remember it was Norway. And yeah, before I actually moved to Sweden, I moved to London. I didn't really go much. Like I went to some school trips like in Germany and Poland, but my family, we just mainly went to like around Scandinavia, which was amazing and it's such a beautiful country. So yeah, so Scandinavia. My first movie I remember watching, I remember the first cinema I went to was like Donald Duck. Don't know who, but we went, and I remember making popcorns at home before we went. I think I was more excited about that because I was not really a Donald Duck fan, to be honest. It must have been like some Astrid Lindgren, like I remember Mio Min Mio or Ronja Rövardotter or like Pippi Longstocking and all of that. I remember I was scared of Pippi Longstocking the first time I watched her. I was like, well, not her, but it's like the movie. I was like, couldn't really watch it. I had to keep, like, every time I was little and I watched something and I felt a bit uncomfortable, I had to like walk away and come back. And so the first time I actually watched like a whole movie, it was, oh, I don't know, I must have been like 10 or something, because I was always a bit like, oh, I can't watch this. So when was your first detention? I never had detention. Even, the thing is, where we lived, it was like kind of impossible to give someone attention anyway, because there's only one bus to get home. So if you missed the bus, it would be like 3 or 4 hours until the next one, and the parents were stuck to work or something, so you know the school couldn't really give detention. So it's quite good to grow up in the countryside. But even then, I never really got warnings or anything. So I was a good girl. Who was your first roommate? So my first flatmate was when I moved to London. I was in shock because I had to actually live with other people because it's so expensive here. I was not happy about that. But so my first proper roommate was my friend Josephine, who's now moved back to Sweden, but she was just amazing. We're still like really good friends. She was one of my bridesmaids, and also like soon after her there was another girl moved in called Marianne, and also she was one of my bridesmaids, and we were all like really good friends still. So it was like we had a bestest of time, and it was just such a great flat. And I remember like when everyone kind of left and we moved out, I just never had such a good flatmate again. But yeah, it was such a great time. So what was the first sport you were involved in? Is this like sports like actually seriously, or was it like I just did it? Because like growing up in like Sweden, I was like skiing and ice skating from like whenever I remember. I played football. The only sport I ever got a medal in, like when I was younger, was high jump. That was my sports when I was little. What is the first thing I do when I get home? Normally is I get home and I look for my husband and give him a cuddle and a kiss. Because I'm just that amazing wife. When was your first kiss? So as I said, we're moving around a lot, and where I lived when I was like up till I was about 9, 10, we like boys and girls was just like, ugh, disgusting, like we don't want to be near each other. And you know, we had a lot of discos, but like everyone was like far away from each other. And then I moved when I was about 11, and I was invited to this party, and I was like, oh okay, cool, I come. And it was like everyone was just, all the games was all about kissing, and it just traumatized me. Like I was quite clever because I was kind of, oh, but I'm quite, you know, new here and I'm shy, I don't know anyone, like I don't want to stick my tongue in people. So I got away quite easily, but it traumatized me so much. I didn't want to go to any parties until I was like 13, 14. I was just like, no, can't deal with this, like this is too much for me. So yeah, that was kind of, I don't actually remember if I actually kissed someone then or not. I do not know, I don't remember. I was just traumatized, that's all I remember. And that's it guys, that was all the questions. So that was my first times of a lot of things. And if you did like this video, give me a little like. If there's any other tag videos you would like me to do, please comment in the below, and hopefully see you soon. Hey då!
And then take each side and just twist it all the way to the bottom, and then you can just I had to get to the bottom.